He took the bullet without hesitation. One heartbeat, one impossible choice, and a life was saved. Before the medals, before the cameras, there was only a battered dog standing between the man he loved and the death he never feared. This is not just a story of betrayal and justice. It's a story of loyalty that never asked for anything in return. If you believe some bonds are forged stronger than blood, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what would loyalty mean to you? The late afternoon sun dipped low behind the crumbling rooftops of Eastwood, casting long bruised shadows across the cracked sidewalks. Malik Brown adjusted the battered cap atop his close-cropped hair, squinting against the glare that bled through the dusty windshield of his pickup truck. The truck wheezed in protest as he pulled into the gravel parking lot outside the community center. He killed the engine but sat still, both hands resting heavily on the steering wheel, listening to the pop and sigh of the cooling engine. In the passenger seat, Rex, his black and tan German shepherd, lifted his massive head and whined softly, sensing his partner's hesitation. Malik glanced at the old laminated poster taped crookedly to the glass door. Annual Canine Skills Competition, open entry, veterans welcome, cash prize. He exhaled a slow, shaky breath. To anyone watching, he was just another aging soldier chasing a moment of faded glory. But the truth was heavier, older, buried deeper than the cracked asphalt beneath his boots. 20 years deeper. "Come on, boy," Malik muttered, grabbing the worn leather leash and giving it a gentle tug. Rex hopped down from the truck, landing with a soft thud. Together they approached the community center, their shadows long and uncertain. Inside, the place buzzed with life handlers in pristine uniforms. Lean denim jacket and scuffed boots drew curious, sometimes pitying glances. He didn't care. He wasn't here for trophies. He was here for something that mattered. At the registration desk, a young woman with a high ponytail and a clipboard flashed him a practiced smile. "Name?" she chirped. Malik cleared his throat. "Malik Brown, and this is Rex." The woman's eyes softened when she looked at Rex. Handsome boy, military background. Malik nodded. "Both of us." She scribbled something on her sheet and handed him a numbered badge. "Good luck, Mr. Brown." Luck, Malik thought grimly, had little to do with it. The competition grounds sprawled behind the center, a makeshift obstacle course cobbled together with plywood, sandbags, and old tires. Beyond the barriers, the old high school football field stretched into overgrown patches of yellowed grass. Malik led Rex through the lineup, feeling eyes follow them. Rex's ears twitched. His nose lifted to the breeze, tasting the scents tangled there. Sweat, fear, old leather, the faint copper of blood from a scraped knee somewhere nearby. Malik knelt beside him, tightening the strap on the harness. "You ready to show them, old man?" he whispered, resting a hand on Rex's broad shoulder. The dog answered with a low rumble of anticipation. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. "Handlers, please proceed to the staging area. First event begins in 5 minutes." Malik stood, his knees creaking. As they made their way to the starting point, he scanned the crowd. Families, local reporters, off-duty cops laughing over coffee. Oblivious, somewhere out there, buried under years of dust and silence, was the truth. Malik just needed Rex to find it. The first event was basic scent tracking, a set of buried objects marked by faint chemical cues. Easy work for any properly trained canine. Malik barely listened as the judge rattled off the rules. He already knew what mattered: focus, trust, instinct. As they moved into position, Malik leaned down, murmuring low into Rex's ear. "We're not here for their damn ribbons, you know what we're looking for." The whistle blew. Rex surged forward, nose skimming the grass. Malik kept pace, letting the leash play out just enough to give him freedom but keeping his hand firm. The dog's body language was textbook sniff, freeze, indicate until, about halfway through the course, something shifted. Rex veered sharply off the marked path, pulling Malik toward a sagging chain-link fence that separated the competition area from the abandoned school grounds beyond. The judges shouted. Spectators gasped. Malik ignored them all. Rex was growling low now, hackles bristling, pawing frantically at a patch of dry earth near the base of the fence. Malik knelt beside him, heart hammering against his ribs. He dug with his bare hands, pulling away brittle grass and dirt until his fingers struck something cold, something metal. He dug faster, heedless of the splinters and cuts, until he unearthed a small, battered tin box, rust eating away at the corners. "Brown, step away from the fence," a voice barked over a bullhorn. Malik cradled the box in both hands, his breath coming in ragged bursts. Inside this box could be the end or the beginning. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw movement. A man lurking at the edge of the parking lot, watching with an intensity that prickled Malik's skin. The man's face was hidden beneath a ball cap, but his posture was too rigid. Malik knew a tale when he saw one. He tucked the box under his jacket and clicked his tongue for Rex. "You're done here," he said aloud, his voice steady even as adrenaline burned hot in his veins. They walked slowly back to the truck, ignoring the shouting judges and the curious stares. Malik opened the passenger door for Rex and climbed behind the wheel. As he started the engine, he caught another glimpse of the man in the mirror, turning away now, speaking urgently into his... The thought so, the truck rumbled out of the lot, tires kicking up little clouds of dust. Malik glanced at Rex, who sat tall and silent, his gold-flecked eyes watchful. "We're not done yet, boy," Malik said softly. He tapped the box hidden under his coat. Not even close. Far behind them, at the edge of the crumbling field, the sun slipped lower, and the shadows grew longer still. Malik drove through the narrow back streets of Eastwood, the battered tin box rattling faintly in the glove compartment with every pothole he hit. Rex sat alert in the passenger seat, ears twitching, nose pointed toward the box as if he could smell the weight of old secrets sealed inside. Malik kept glancing at the rearview mirror, every muscle in his body strung tight. The man in the ball cap had disappeared when Malik left the competition grounds, but the tension had the metallic taste in his mouth. He pulled into the cracked driveway of his small rented house, an aging bungalow sagging under the weight of too many forgotten years. He killed the engine and waited, listening, feeling, sensing. Only when he was sure no one was watching did he climb out, the box clutched tight under his jacket. Rex bounded back to Malik's side, satisfied. Pictures. Malik unlocked the door and they slipped inside, musty smell of old wood and cigarette smoke greeting them like an old, unwelcome friend. He bolted the door, drew the heavy curtains shut, and finally, carefully, placed the box on the scarred kitchen table. Rex sat beside him, panting quietly, watching his every move. Malik stared at the box for a long moment, his callous fingers tracing the rusted seams. The metal was cold, unnaturally heavy, like it carried more than just its own weight, like it carried memory, blood, betrayal. With a grunt, Malik wedged a screwdriver under the lid and pried it open. The was a single item, a VHS tape, cracked along one edge, the label smeared but still legible in places, faint block letters that spelled a name he hadn't heard in 20 years. Malik's throat tightened. He reached out, lifting the tape with reverent hands. It was heavier than he expected, and something inside rattled loosely, damaged maybe beyond saving. Maybe not. He turned it over, examining it, heart hammering in his chest, the questions roaring louder than blood in his ears. Then, the low growl from Rex, deep, vibrating against the floorboards. Malik froze, instinct from years past kicking in. He slid the tape back into the box and looked up. Just as the front door rattled violently, a heavy pounding that echoed through the small house. Malik didn't move, didn't breathe. Rex shifted forward, growling louder. The pounding came again, more insistent. "I know you have it," a voice barked from the other side, harsh, demanding. "You don't know what you're playing with, old man." Malik's mind raced. The box, the tape, the man from the competition. He must have followed them somehow, tracked them here. Malik backed away from the table, grabbing Rex's leash out of reflex, but Rex wasn't waiting for commands. He was already at the door, muscles coiled, ready. Malik's eyes flicked to the back window, too small for him, maybe enough for Rex, but what then? Outside the pounding grew more frenzied, fists and feet slamming against the door. Malik made his choice in a heartbeat. He tucked the box under his arm, grabbed his keys from the counter and hissed, "Garage Rex now?" The dog obeyed instantly, veering toward the door that led to the attached garage. Malik followed, slamming it behind them just as the front door cracked and buckled inward. The garage was a tomb of old tools and dust, but the truck was there, thank God. He threw open the driver's side door and Rex leapt in without hesitation. climbed in, jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life just as the door to the kitchen burst open, and the first shadow lunged through. Malik floored the accelerator. The truck fishtailed violently, tires squealing against cracked concrete. He aimed straight for the flimsy garage door, braced for impact, and crashed through in a rain of splinters and rust. Rex barked once, sharp and exhilarated. They were free. For now, the truck skidded onto the street, Malik twisting the wheel hard, adrenaline spiking. Behind them, the house receded, a figure stumbling into the yard, waving something in his hand. A gun maybe a radio. Malik didn't care. He drove, not looking back, weaving through side streets, cutting through alleys, until the town fell away into empty farmland and broken fences. Only then did he let up on the gas, his heart still hammering in his chest. Rex whined low, restless. Malik reached over, scratching behind the dog's ears. "Good boy," he said, voice rough, but his mind was already spinning. He needed a place to hide, to think, to find a way to see what was on that tape if it was even salvageable. But one thing was clear now: someone wanted it badly enough to break into his home in broad daylight. And that meant whatever it was, it mattered. It mattered more than he had dared to hope. Malik turned onto a deserted service road, the cracked asphalt stretching ahead like a forgotten scar. He needed help, but not the kind that wore badges or suits. He needed someone who remembered what it meant to have no one else. No one but the man beside you and the dog at your feet. Malik's mind raced through old contacts, old debts, wondering who might still be alive, still loyal. The setting sun painted the sky in angry smears of orange and red. A bad omen, or a promise, he didn't know anymore. Rex shifted beside him, and Malik caught the faintest flicker of movement in the rearview mirror. A car, headlights off, trailing at a distance, keeping just close enough to stay on. He tightened his grip on the wheel and pressed the accelerator harder. The old truck bucking like a wounded animal. Ahead, the service road curved sharply, disappearing into a thicket of dead trees. Malik smiled grimly. It wasn't much of a plan, but it would have to do. He flicked the headlights off, killing their only beacon in the growing darkness, and plunged into the curve without slowing down. The box under the seat rattled again, the tape inside whispering promises of old betrayals and older wounds. Malik didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could feel them gaining ground. He could feel the past closing in with every shuddering mile. But Malik Brown had spent a lifetime running from ghosts, and this time, he wasn't planning to run. The cracked service road twisted tighter between the skeletal trees, and Malik gritted his teeth, feeling every jolt and rattle through the aging frame of the truck. The headlights stayed off, plunging them into a murky darkness broken only by the occasional sliver of moonlight filtering through dead branches. Behind him, the shadowy car stayed close, lights still dead, a predator stalking wounded prey. Malik pressed the accelerator harder, feeling the truck's old engine protect. Rex shifted in the seat, tense, growling low and deep, warning of the threat that slithered closer with every mile. Malik's mind spun, calculating, remembering backroads from patrol routes he had run years ago, routes no outsider would know. But then the service road ended abruptly in a crumbled barrier of fallen logs and erosion. Malik cursed under his breath, jerking the wheel into a hard right, veering off the road into the underbrush. Branches screeched against the sides of the truck as he plunged through, tires spinning on mud. Behind them, the pursuing vehicle roared up and skidded to a stop, headlights finally flaring to life. Blinding and white, Malik ducked low over the wheel, driving blind, trusting instinct, heart hammering in his ears. Rex barked sharply. Once, urgent, Malik braced as the truck burst through a line of scrub and onto another dirt path, narrower, more treacherous. But it bought them seconds, precious seconds. He didn't dare stop, didn't dare slow down. But when the next curve came, a shadow moved across the path ahead. Too quick, too sudden. Malik swore and slammed the brakes. The truck skidded sideways, throwing up a cloud of dust and gravel. And that was when they came. 3 figures in black surged from the trees, faces masked, movements sharp and trained. Malik barely had time to register the glint of a weapon before Rex launched from the seat, a blur of muscle and fury. He hit the first attacker square in the chest, knocking him back with a howl of surprise and pain. Malik rolled out of the driver's side, the box clutched tight under his jacket, instinct driving him low and fast toward the underbrush. A shot cracked through the night, splintering wood inches from his head. Rex barked again, furious. A second figure lunged, grabbing for Malik's arm. But Rex was faster, teeth flashing. He sank his jaws into the man's wrist, eliciting a raw, panicked scream. Malik swung his elbow into the third attacker's throat, feeling the jarring impact as the man stumbled back, coughing. No time to think, no time to fight clean. Only survive. He whistled sharply. The command drilled into Rex's bones. The dog disengaged instantly, bounding to Malik's side. They ran, plunging into the thick trees, boots slipping on wet leaves, heart pounding against ribs. Malik heard shouting behind them, the attackers regrouping. But he and Rex were already gone. Ghosts in the night. They scrambled up a ravine, clawing at roots and rocks, the box digging painfully into Malik's ribs. Above them, a small clearing opened onto another road. Malik didn't recognize it immediately, but he didn't hesitate. He vaulted over the edge, Rex following close, landing heavily on the cracked asphalt. Headlights approached from the distance, and Malik cursed again, dragging Rex into the shadows at the side of the road. A battered police cruiser rattled past, its spotlight sweeping lazily over the trees. Malik froze, breath caught in his throat. Hoping, praying the light wouldn't find them, the cruiser rolled on, oblivious, and Malik let out a slow, shuddering breath. But as the taillights faded, something snagged his gaze. A flash of white on the bumper, the license plate, and in that brief second, the numbers seared into his brain. 217. Malik's gut twisted painfully. He knew those plates, had filled out the paperwork for half of them himself, back when he wore the badge. The realization hit like a physical blow. It wasn't just hired muscle chasing him. It was the department. His department. The place he had bled and sweated for. Betrayed him. And now they were hunting him. A bitter laugh bubbled up in his throat, but he choked it down. No time for rage, no time for grief. He tugged Rex closer, scratching behind the dog's ears, grounding himself, thinking, calculating. The box thudded against his ribs again. A grim reminder, whatever was on that tape was worth covering up even after all these years. Worth killing for. Malik pressed deeper into the woods, moving parallel to the road, using the sound of distant traffic to mask their passage. Every step a reminder of old injuries, old battles fought in sand and blood. The night deepened, shadows thickening into a dull orange haze behind the trees. Malik headed north, toward the river, where the land got wild and forgotten, where a man could disappear if he needed to, where he knew a few secrets even Eastwood's finest hadn't managed to kill or pave over. Rex stayed close, the leash loose in Malik's hand, but his body tense, alert, ready. Malik felt the same pull in his blood, the old instincts flaring back to life. Survival, evasion, silent movement. They reached a shallow creek, the water running cold and fast over smooth stones. Malik knelt, splashing water over his face, tasting iron and fatigue. He glanced back once, scanning the woods, seeing nothing but feeling everything. They weren't safe yet, not by a long shot. Malik waded across, boots slipping on the slick rocks, Rex leaping ahead with fluid grace. The far bank rose steeply, a tangle of brambles and twisted trees. Malik clawed his way up, muscles screaming, lungs burning. But he made it, pulling himself into a clearing, moonlight spilling across the ground like spilled mercury. Malik dropped to one knee, catching his breath, listening. Always listening. In the distance, the howl of a siren split the night. Reminder that Eastwood's reach was long and merciless. Malik knew they would not stop, not tonight, maybe not ever. The tape burned against his ribs, a phantom weight heavier than the metal that housed it. He didn't know what was on it, not yet, but he knew this much. Whatever secrets it carried, they were alive, dangerous. Malik wiped his palms on his jeans, steadying himself. The plan was forming, crude, desperate, but better than nothing. He needed help, someone who still owed him, someone who wasn't afraid to get dirty. Malik rose slowly, scanning the tree line, picking a direction, feeling Rex press close against his leg. Faithful as ever, they moved together into the trees, into the deeper dark where the past waited, teeth bared, ready to devour the unwary. The forest grew denser as Malik and Rex pushed deeper into its shadowy heart, every step muffled by layers of wet leaves and ancient soil. Malik moved on instinct now, no plan, no map, just the burning need to stay alive and to protect the small battered box hidden beneath his jacket. The night air clung heavy and damp against his skin, and every sound a snapping twig, the distant call of an owl made his muscles tense. After what felt like hours of running, ducking, listening, Malik found a small depression in the earth, half hidden by gnarled roots and thick underbrush. He motioned Rex down and crouched low, his chest heaving, his legs aching from the relentless pace. For a long moment he just sat there, feeling the thunder of his pulse in his ears, letting the darkness settle over them like a second skin. Rex pressed close, his body heat grounding Malik, calming the shaking that had nothing to do with the cold. Malik pulled the box out carefully, turning it over in his hands, the worn edges rough against his palms. He needed to see, needed to know. He flipped open the lid and stared again at the cracked VHS tape lying inside. The label, barely legible under years of grime and neglect, teased the edges of memory. A name, a time, a place he had buried deep inside himself. Not because he forgot, but because remembering hurt too much. Slowly, Malik pulled a small portable player from his backpack, a relic from another life he kept for reasons he never fully understood. He slotted the tape in with a soft click. The old machine whirred and coughed, but accepted it. And then, with a hiss of static, images flickered to life on the tiny screen. Malik leaned in, heart in his throat. At first, the footage was shaky, grainy black and white shadows moving against the backdrop of a grimy warehouse. Voices mumbled, indistinct. And then the camera settled, focusing on a group of men, faces partially hidden. But Malik knew them, even through the murky quality. He knew them. They were soldiers once, brothers in arms. Men he had bled with, men he had trusted. And standing slightly apart from the others was someone else. A civilian. Hands bound behind his back, beaten, bloody, trembling. Malik's breath caught painfully in his chest as he watched the scene unfold. The civilian's face was familiar too. Horribly so. It was Dr. Leonard Hayes, a medic who had uncovered too much about the illegal operations their unit had been ordered to cover up. Malik remembered confronting his commanding officer about it. Remembered the threats, the veiled warnings, the endless meetings where nothing was said aloud but everything was understood. And then, the night everything fell apart. The night Hayes disappeared and Malik's spotless record was ripped apart like tissue paper. Framed, dishonored, cast out of the only life he had ever known. Malik's hands shook as he watched the grainy footage show what the official reports had denied. Hayes being executed. Not by enemy fire, but by men in Malik's own unit. And worse, Malik saw the figure standing silently in the background of the footage. A figure with the cold, detached gaze of someone giving orders without speaking a word. It was Colonel Matthew Sloan, Malik's former superior, now bile rising in his throat. He clicked the screen off, jamming the player back into his pack, hands trembling with rage, with grief, with the crushing weight of vindication that came too late to save anything that had mattered. He leaned back against the cold, damp earth, staring up through the skeletal trees at the sliver of stars beyond, feeling the old pain open up inside him like a wound torn from. Right, he had been right all those years ago, right to fight, right to resist, and they had destroyed him for it. They had taken his life, his honor, his future. Malik felt Rex press against his side, a warm, steady presence. He turned his head to look at the dog, into those deep, intelligent eyes, and something shifted inside him, a thread of memory snapping taut, a smell, a sound, battlefield so many years ago, dust and blood and gunfire. And beside him, a German shepherd moving like a shadow, a soldier as true as any man. Rex Sr., the realization washing over him like a flood. The dog who had saved his life more times than he could count, who had bled beside him in the sand and smoke, and then he remembered more. The day he had been forced to leave, the way Rex Sr. had lunged against the leash as they dragged Malik away, the raw, broken howl that had echoed in the sterile halls of the barracks, a sound that haunted Malik's nightmares still. And when he had found Rex Jr. at the shelter 2 years ago, battered, alone, eyes full of the same fierce loyalty, he had thought it was coincidence, fate maybe, but not this. Never this. And yet now he knew. The bloodline was not just shared, it was destiny. Malik reached out, running a hand through Rex's thick fur. The dog leaned into him, a low whine rumbling in his chest. Malik swallowed hard, emotions battering him from all sides. Loyalty, betrayal, loss, hope. It all wrapped around him, crushing and lifting in the old wounds, and the new ones bleed together into something sharp and dangerous. He couldn't run anymore, couldn't hide. The tape was proof, undeniable, explosive. If he could get it into the right hands, he could tear down everything built on the graves of the innocent. But first he had to survive the night. Malik rose slowly, stiff, harder. He checked the player, the box, the dog, gathering everything close, guarding it with his battered soul. The forest stretched out before them, dark and cold and merciless. But Malik Brown was done being. He had a war to finish. He clicked his tongue, Rex falling into step beside him, and together they slipped back into the woods, ghosts carrying the last breath of the truth, the first light of vengeance glinting in their eyes. The forest thinned out as Malik moved cautiously through the shifting darkness. Rex at his side, every sense sharpened to a razor's edge. The battered tape and the portable player were secured tightly inside his pack. But Malik knew he needed something better. Somewhere safe to access and possibly duplicate the footage. The evidence could not stay trapped inside a fragile, dying cassette much longer. He needed technology. Allies, leverage. Malik's mind ticked through the possibility, weighing risks against dwindling options, and one name surfaced from the muck of old memory. Travis Harlan, once a tech specialist in their unit, now rumored to run a small repair shop on the edge of Eastwood. Unofficial work mostly, no questions asked if the cash was good. Malik adjusted his course, slipping through the woods toward the forgotten parts of town, where rusted trailers and burned-out warehouses dotted the landscape like scabs. The trip took hours, every noise dissected for danger. When the faint outline of Harlan's shop appeared under the jaundiced glow of a dying streetlight, Malik paused, scanning the surroundings. No movement, no obvious traps. But trust was a currency Malik had long since stopped spending easily. He approached the back of the shop, tapping a coded rhythm on the side door. Rex standing alert, ears forward. After a tense minute, the door creaked open just a crack. One bloodshot eye peering out. "Jesus," a raspy voice whispered. "They said you were dead or worse." Malik grunted, pushing the door wider and slipping inside. Rex close behind. Travis Harlan was thinner now, hairline receding. The tattoos on his arms faded to blurred smudges. But the quick, nervous intelligence still danced behind his eyes. "Need a favor," Malik said, voice low and urgent. He pulled the player and tape from his bag, laying them on a scarred metal workbench. Travis paled when he saw the tape, recognition flickering across his face. But he said nothing, just swallowed hard and nodded. Setting to work with trembling fingers, Malik stood watch at the back door. Every muscle taut, every shadow a possible threat. The minutes crawled by, filled with the whirring hum of ancient machines. And then, just as Travis whispered, "Got it, loading now," Malik felt it, the subtle shift in the air, the wrongness creeping in. Too late, the door behind him exploded inward, a boot smashing through. Malik spun, instincts firing, but he wasn't fast enough. A heavy blow to his ribs sent him sprawling against the bench. Rex snarled and launched himself at the intruders. But more figures poured into the room, moving with military precision. Black uniforms, tactical gear, faces half-shielded. And leading them, stepping into the flickering light like a ghost from Malik's worst memories, was Captain Evan Stroud. Once Malik's brother in arms. Now, wearing the stripes of a decorated officer, and the smug, cold smile of a man who had traded loyalty for power. "Malik Brown," Stroud drawled, voice oily with false camaraderie. "You should have stayed dead, brother." Malik pushed himself upright, chest heaving, pain flaring through his side. Rex growled low, hackles raised. Braced between Malik and the attackers, Travis froze at the bench, hands lifted in useless surrender. "You're making a mistake," Malik rasped. Glaring at Stroud, he repeated, amused. "No, brother, the mistake was letting you crawl out of that desert alive 20 years ago." Malik's heart pounded, the betrayal cutting deeper than the blows. "It's still about Hayes, isn't it?" he said, voice steady despite the rage boiling under his skin. Stroud's smile widened, cruel and careless. "It's about loose ends," he said, gesturing to the tape on the bench. "It's about unfinished business." Malik shifted subtly, gauging distances, angles, possibilities. There weren't many. Stroud nodded to his men, and two of them moved forward, tasers drawn. Malik tensed, preparing to fight even if it meant dying right here. But Rex moved first, a blur of muscle and fury. He barreled into the first attacker, knocking the taser flying, then twisted to sink his teeth into the second man's arm. Chaos erupted. Shouts, gunmetal glinting. Malik lunged for the taper, shoving them into his pack. But Strauss was faster. He drew a pistol and leveled it at Malik's chest, finger tightening on the trigger. And in that heartbeat, time stretched. Malik saw everything: the betrayal, the blood, the burning need for justice. And then Rex hurled himself at Stroud, knocking the aim wide. The pistol fired with a deafening crack, the bullet missing by inches. Stroud staggered back, cursing, and as he did, he roared, raw and furious. "You and that damn dog should have died 20 years ago." The words sliced through the chaos like a blade, brutal and final. Malik's vision narrowed, rage and clarity fusing into a single burning purpose. He grabbed a wrench from the bench and swung it hard, the heavy steel connecting with the side of Stroud's head with a sickening thud. Stroud crumpled, unconscious or worse. Malik didn't wait to find out. He scooped up Rex, who was bleeding from a shallow gash but still growling, still ready to fight, and bolted for the shattered door. Behind them, the other attackers shouted, stumbling over each other in confusion. Travis's voice rang out behind them, desperate and broken. "Go, man, go." Malik ran, the world a blur of dark shapes and broken light, the tape digging into his ribs with every stride. Rex clutched tight against his chest, the night swallowing them whole as they disappeared into the labyrinth of Eastwood's dead-end streets. Malik tore through the sleeping streets of Eastwood, Rex's weight heavy against his chest, his legs burning from the sprint, his lungs clawing for air. But he didn't stop, couldn't stop, the stolen tape digging into his side with every desperate stride. Behind him, the chaos of the ambush faded into distant shouting. But Malik knew it wouldn't take them long to regroup. To hunt him again, he veered down an alley lined with sagging fences and flickering security lights. Heart pounding in his ears, he needed a place, a hiding spot where he could finally see the truth he had carried like a hidden wound for 2 decades. Malik's gaze snapped to a laundromat, its neon open sign buzzing faintly against the heavy dark. He ducked inside, the stink of bleach and damp cotton hitting him like a wall. The place was empty, the hum of old washing machines filling the silence. He slipped behind a row of dryers, setting Rex gently down. The dog whined but favoring his wounded side. Malik knelt, pulling the battered portable player from his pack, his hands trembling with urgency. He fed the VHS tape into the machine, praying it would hold together for just a little longer. Static flared across the tiny screen, snow and crackling lines. Malik cursed under his breath, smacking the side of the device, and then, miraculously, the image stabilized. Malik leaned in, every breath held. The footage was rough, shaky, but clear enough. Concrete walls stained with old blood. Men in uniform surrounding a figure on his knees. Bound, battered, pleading. Malik recognized the place instantly. The old Eastwood freight yard. Abandoned even back then, but what slammed into him harder was recognizing the men, some older now, heavier but unmistakable. Eastwood police, some still active, some retired with full honors, and standing above the kneeling figure, a badge gleaming under the flickering westlights, was Chief Daniel Mercer. The current police chief, hailed by the media as a reformer, a pillar of the community. Malik felt bile rise in his throat as he watched Mercer raise his weapon with casual finality and fire. The sound wasn't captured, but the image of the body collapsing onto the filthy concrete was sickeningly vivid. The men gathered around shakily, capturing faces, badges, silent complicity, and then it turned, briefly, almost accidentally, toward the source of the footage, reflected faintly in a cracked mirror across the room. A boy, maybe 12 or 13, small, scared, holding the camera with both trembling hands, hidden behind crates but too frozen to run. Malik's mind spun, trying to process. It made the boy turn slightly, and the faint light caught his face, wide eyes, dirt-streaked cheeks. A face Malik hadn't seen in years but would never forget, because it now graced billboards all over town. The face of Marcus Ellery, the current president of the Eastwood City Council, the so-called architect of Eastwood's new golden age. Malik reeled back, nearly knocking over a chair. Marcus, the boy who had somehow survived that night, who had witnessed everything, who had carried the same monstrous secret for 2 decades. Malik's hands shook violently as he paused the footage, freezing the image of the boy's terrified face on the screen. The implications thundered through his skull. Marcus had filmed the murder, had kept it hidden, had built his rise to power on the rotten bones of that night, had pretended to be a reformer while protecting the very men who had made Eastwood a graveyard of justice. Malik's breathing came harsh and ragged, the weight of the discovery almost too much to bear. He looked down at Rex, who sat quietly, watching him with calm, steady eyes, a silent reminder that Malik had never been truly alone in this fight. Malik pressed his forehead to the cold surface of the dryer, forcing his mind to clear, focus, plan. The tape wasn't enough by itself, not anymore. He needed to confront Marcus, force the truth into the light where no one could deny it, where Mercer, Stroud, and every bloodstained badge would have to answer. Malik wiped his face with shaking hands, stuffing the player and tape back into his pack. The laundromat buzzed with mechanical indifference as he rose, his body screaming in protest. Outside, the streets remained eerily silent. The kind of silence that was never safe. Malik adjusted Rex's harness gently, checking the wound, not deep but still bleeding. He'd need to patch it soon. But first they had to move. He slipped back into the shadows, avoiding the main streets, cutting through alleys and over fences. Driven by pure, stubborn survival, Malik's mind churned as he moved, rehearsing possibilities, consequences. The city hall was fortified now. Cameras, guards, bureaucratic fortresses. Marcus wouldn't be easy to reach, but Malik knew another way, a softer underbelly, a charity gala scheduled for tonight at the Old Eastwood Museum. Marcus was slated to give a keynote speech about community trust and renewal, the bitter irony twisting in Malik's gut like a knife. Perfect, under the glittering chandeliers and plastic smiles. Malik would tear down their kingdom of lies. He picked up the pace, the skyline looming ahead like a broken promise. The battered portable player pressing insistently against his ribs. A heartbeat of its own. Rex trotted beside him, limping slightly but undeterred, and Malik whispered to the dog without breaking stride, "Almost there, partner." But even as he said it, even as he clung to the plan forming in the ashes of his past, Malik knew the night was far from over, and the worst was still lying in wait. Malik slipped through the twisted streets like a phantom, each step calculated, each alley measured. Rex limped slightly beside him but never faltered, the battered tape and portable player secured against Malik's chest. The city's heartbeat pulsing faster around them as news of the attacks spread in whispers and coded messages across the police radios. Malik knew time was running out. Marcus Ellery's web of influence stretched deeper than he had ever realized, and if they wanted the truth to die, they would hunt him to the last breath. Malik's plan was desperate but clear. He had to reach the courthouse, the only place left where the evidence might be legally secured, where it could trigger an investigation beyond Eastwood's corrupted borders. Dawn was breaking as he approached the courthouse steps, the sky bruised purple and gold, the city stirring reluctantly from its poisoned sleep. Malik kept to the shadows, scanning every car, every corner, knowing death could come from any direction. He felt Rex tense a second before he heard the roar of an engine. A black SUV hurtled around the corner, tires screaming against the asphalt, the sun flashing off the windshield blinding him for a heartbeat. Malik dove sideways, screaming, but the vehicle adjusted course with surgical precision, targeting him, not missing, never missing. Malik hit the ground hard, his ribs exploding in pain, and in that frozen second he knew he wouldn't make it. The SUV bore down, a monster on wheels, and then Rex moved, a blur of black and tan muscle and fury. He hurled himself into Malik's side, shoving him clear with a grunt of effort, taking the full brutal impact himself. The sound was sickening, a dull wet thud as Rex's body smashed against the steel bumper. The SUV swerved wildly, clipping a streetlight, then roared away into the city like a beast fleeing its own crime. Malik scrambled to Rex's side, his vision blurring. The dog lay twisted on the blood pooling beneath him, his sides heaving with shallow, broken breaths. "No, no, no," Malik gasped, hands shaking as he pressed against Rex's wounds. Desperate, useless. The world narrowed to the sound of Rex's ragged breathing, the blood seeping between Malik's fingers, the tape and the player forgotten for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. "Stay with me, partner," Malik choked out, voice raw, tears burning at the edges of his vision. Rex's eyes opened slowly, glazed but still focused, still loyal. He whined softly, lifting his paw weakly toward Malik's chest, and something clicked in Malik's mind. A memory, a training session long ago in the desert heat. Rex Sr. wearing a specialized vest packed with tactical tech. And then Malik's hands brushed against a small lump beneath the harness. His fingers found a zipper. Trembling, pulled it open. Inside, nestled against the fabric, was a thin metallic chip, blinking faintly with a dying blue light. Malik's heart nearly stopped, realization slamming into him harder than the SUV ever could. It wasn't just a chip, it was a military-grade recorder, the kind issued to K9 units during high heist operations, programmed to log location data, audio, even heart rate patterns, everything. Rex had been carrying a silent witness all along, a living archive of Malik's final deployment, of the betrayal, the setup, the lies, 1,000 questions screaming through his mind. How much had it captured? How much could still be salvaged? But he had no time. The squeal of distant tires told him reinforcements were already coming. The courthouse loomed a block away, impossibly far. A world away, Malik shoved the chip into the inner pocket of his jacket, lifted Rex into his arms, staggering under the weight, the dog's blood soaking into his clothes. "You got your buddy," he whispered, gritting his teeth against the agony lancing through his side. Every step was a war, every breath a battle. Malik stumbled toward the courthouse steps, the world tilting and spinning around him. Behind him, another engine roared to life, headlights flaring, voices shouting. Malik didn't look back, didn't dare. He focused on the heavy doors ahead, the faint promise of safety, of justice, of something more than endless running. Rex whimpered once, a broken sound that gutted Malik to his core. Almost there, almost there. He muttered through gritted teeth, his muscles screaming, his vision tunneling. The first bullets cracked against the pavement at his feet, sharp and mean. Ripping up concrete, Malik swerved, shielded Rex with his body, the old soldier in him rising up one last time, fierce and unyielding. The courthouse steps stretched out like a dream, unreachable, but Malik kept moving, dragging himself and his dying partner toward that last fragile hope. Malik stumbled up the courthouse steps, the weight of Rex heavy and slipping in his arms, his own blood mixing with the dog's, the morning sun slicing harsh across the battered facade. But even as he reached the top, even as he slammed a bloody hand against the locked glass doors, he knew it was useless. The building was closed, emergency lockdowns in place. Maybe ordered by Mercer, maybe by Marcus himself. The betrayal ran so deep it was hard to tell where the rot ended. Malik cursed under his breath, pivoting unsteadily, scanning the empty plaza for any way out. But Rex stirred weakly in his arms, his muzzle nudging Malik's chest insistently. The dog's eyes were glazed with pain but filled with an almost desperate urgency. Malik blinked, confused, until Rex whined sharply, squirmed, wriggled free from Malik's grip, and dropped to the ground with a pained grunt. Malik reached for him instinctively, but Rex had already staggered upright, legs trembling but determined. He nosed Malik's thigh, then turned, limping with stubborn purpose toward the far end of the square, toward the old access tunnel that ran beneath the courthouse. Malik hesitated only a second, then followed, trusting Rex's instinct over his own broken logic. The tunnel mouth was hidden behind a rusted maintenance gate, half buried in creeping vines. Malik kicked it open, wincing at the screech of metal, and slipped inside, darkness swallowing them whole. The narrow passage smelled of mold and forgotten things. But Rex pressed forward, each step an act of will. Malik followed, the faint blinking of the chip in his pocket and the relentless ache in his ribs driving him on. After what felt like an eternity, Rex stopped, pawing at a door set into the concrete wall. Malik fumbled it open, and they spilled into a maintenance corridor that connected to the city's underground medical archives, a place so old and forgotten it barely existed on maps anymore. Malik caught his breath, realization dawning. Rex wasn't just leading him to safety, he was leading him to someone buried in the past, someone who might still hold the final thread to unravel the lies. The corridor ended at a heavy steel door, unmarked but familiar. Malik slammed his fist against it, once, twice, 3 times, desperate, reckless, ready to fight or beg, whatever it took. For a long moment there was only silence, and then a small hatch slid open at eye level. a pair of wary, haunted eyes peering through. Recognition flickered there, and the door creaked open. Standing there was a woman in her late 40s, her hair tied back in a messy bun, wearing scrubs stained with old ink and dust. But it was her eyes that Malik recognized, even after all these years. Eyes that had once looked at him with trust and later with despair. Corinne. Malik rasped, his voice breaking. She stared at him a moment longer, then pulled him inside, slamming the door shut behind them, locking multiple bolts with quick, practiced motions. Malik sagged against the wall, cradling Rex while Corinne hovered over them, her hands trembling but sure. "You're hurt," she said unnecessarily, her voice rough from years of silence. Malik nodded, barely able to speak. He managed, pulling the chip from his jacket. Corinne's gaze sharpened instantly, understanding flashing in her eyes. She took the chip carefully, almost reverently, and moved to a battered laptop perched on a cluttered desk. Malik eased Rex down onto a pile of blankets, whispering reassurances even as the dog whimpered softly. Corinne worked fast, plugging the chip into an ancient adapter, tapping in commands. Her fingers flying. Malik watched her, remembering the way she had been back then, fresh out of nursing school, idealistic, believing in the mission until she saw too much, knew too much, and became a liability. "You saved me," Corinne said suddenly, her voice low, thick with emotion. Malik blinked, confused. 20 years ago, she continued, not looking at him, her hands still moving. "The night they framed you, the night they killed Hayes." She swallowed hard, her shoulders trembling. "I was in that warehouse, hidden behind the medical crates. I had seen the lists, the transfers, the black ops they buried under false flags. Mercer knew, Straub knew, and when they realized Hayes wasn't alone, they came for me." Malik's mind reeled, fragments of old nightmares piecing together into a sharper, crueler picture. Corinne wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and kept talking. "You found me first, got me out, hid me, faked a trail, made it look like I escaped on my own. You stayed behind to cover it up, to buy time." She turned then, meeting his stunned gaze. "They needed a scapegoat, and you handed yourself to them without even knowing." Malik sagged further against the wall, the crushing weight of it all slamming into him. The sacrifices he had made, the life he had lost, all coming into brutal focus. "Why didn't you come forward?" he asked, the words torn from his throat. Corinne's face crumpled. "I tried," she whispered, "but they threatened my family, my license, everything. And when I finally found a way to speak, Marcus was already rising, already controlling the narrative. They buried me under paperwork and sealed." She tapped the screen, pulling up the files from the chip, her hands steady now with purpose. "But you kept the truth alive," she said fiercely. "You and him." She nodded toward Rex, who wagged his tail weakly in acknowledgement. Malik pressed his forehead to the cold concrete, emotion threatening to drown him. But he pushed it down. He couldn't afford to break, not yet. Corinne worked quickly, copying the files onto multiple drives, printing out stills from the audio logs, cross-referencing timestamps with archived military records she had secretly saved. Piece by piece, rebuilding the shattered truth into a weapon they could wield. Rex shifted against Malik's leg, licking his hand once, a tired but determined gesture, and Malik whispered, "Almost there, partner," knowing it was as much a promise to himself as it was to the dog. The heavy oak doors of the Eastwood Superior Court groaned open, and Malik stepped inside, Rex limping beside him. Every eye in the packed gallery snapping to attention. The morning light poured through the high windows, painting long shadows across the cold marble floor. Malik could feel the weight of 100 stares digging into his skin. Some hostile, some curious, a few filled with the desperate hope of people who still believed justice might mean something here. Rex's wounded steps echoed in the cavernous hall, but he kept pace, head high, tail steady, a warrior refusing to falter before the final battle. Malik clutched the case file Corinne had helped him assemble, the chip data, the forensic timelines, the grainy footage. Every broken piece stitched together into a weapon that could not be ignored. He approached the witness stand under the glare of the judge, an aging man with deep-set eyes, who had seen too many good men fall, and too many guilty ones walk free. Malik laid the file down with trembling hands, swearing silently that this time the truth would not be buried. The courtroom murmured as Marcus Ellery entered, flanked by a phalanx of security and lawyers in expensive suits. His face was composed, polished, but Malik saw the tightness around his mouth, the flicker of fear in his eyes. Mercer and Stroud followed, equally composed. But Malik knew the storm was already unraveling beneath their skins. The judge called the court to order, and Malik took a deep breath, swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. His voice rang clear as he testified, recounting everything, from the dusty back alleys of Eastwood to the blood-stained sands of the desert. Every betrayal, every lie. The room hung on his every word, even the air seemed to tighten as he played the data logs from Rex's chip, proving their movements, their locations, their innocence, exposing the conspiracy with brutal clarity. The murmurs grew louder, turning into gasps, shouts. The judge banging his gavel in vain as the crowd erupted in disbelief and rage. Malik locked eyes with Marcus across the room and saw it then, the collapse. The shattering of the false empire he had built on corpses and lies. But Malik also saw something else, something colder, sharper. The flicker of a decision made in desperation. Malik's instincts screamed at him even before he saw them, a security officer pulling a weapon from under his jacket, aiming not at the crowd, not at the judge, but at Malik. Everything slowed, the barrel rising, the trigger squeezing, and in that frozen instant Rex lunged, his battered body moving with a speed born not of strength but of love. He threw himself between Malik and the gunman, teeth bared, a deep, guttural snarl tearing from his throat. The shot cracked through the room, shattering the silence. Rex slammed into the attacker, driving him backward, but the bullet found its mark first. Rex staggered, a pained whimper escaping his bloodied muzzle as he crumpled to the marble floor. Malik shouted, a raw, broken sound, diving after him. The courtroom dissolved into chaos, officers swarming, disarming the shooter, dragging Marcus and his co-conspirators toward the bench. But Malik saw none of it. He saw only Rex, lying still, blood pooling around him. Malik gathered him into his, rocking him gently, whispering words he couldn't hear over the roar in his ears. Rex's chest rose once, a shallow, shuddering breath, his eyes finding Malik's, and then, slowly, he sagged against him, still silent, gone. Malik buried his face in the dog's fur, the grief ripping through him more fiercely than any bullet ever could. Through blurred vision, he noticed the battered collar around Rex's neck. He turned it over with trembling fingers and read the simple words etched deep into the metal. Words that shattered what little was left of his battered heart. I protect the truth. Malik pressed the tag to his forehead, his shoulders shaking with the force of a sorrow too vast for words. Rex had been more than a partner, more than a savior. He had been hope, loyalty, the living proof that not all things built in blood had to end in betrayal. Around him, the courtroom slowly calmed, the judge barking orders, emergency teams rushing in, news cameras flashing at the edges of the room, capturing every broken, sacred second. Malik, he stayed there on the cold marble floor, cradling the dog who had given everything, not for glory, not for medals, but for Malik, for the promise they had shared with every step of their journey. The truth was free now, the chains broken, the poison laid bare. But the cost, oh God, the cost was written in blood between his fingers. The days that followed the trial blurred into a storm of flashing cameras, frantic reporters, and hastily called press conferences. The images of Malik holding Rex's lifeless body had been broadcast across every screen in the nation. The story of the fallen soldier and his loyal canine partner ignited something raw in the public, something that the powers behind Eastwood's corruption could no longer contain. Investigations launched at a dizzying pace, state and federal agents swarming Eastwood's government buildings, subpoenas flying like autumn leaves. Marcus Ellery was arrested within 48 hours. Stripped of his titles, his influence crumbling like ash in a storm, Mercer and Stroud followed quickly, paraded in handcuffs past the same courthouse steps they had once climbed so arrogantly. Other scapees, city council members, police captains fell one after another, the rot exposed at last to the searing light of truth. Malik attended every hearing, sitting silently in the back of the courtroom, a living reminder that justice, though slow and battered, could still claw its way out of the grave. When his own hearing came, the courtroom was packed to bursting, strangers, veterans, families, holding homemade signs that read, "Justice for Malik," and "Honor Rex." The judge, the same one who had presided over the explosive trial, spoke with a gravity that filled the room. He intoned, This court finds that you are wrongfully accused, wrongfully imprisoned in the court of public opinion, and wrongfully stripped of your honor." He paused, his voice catching slightly. "Today we restore that honor." Malik stood as the gavel fell, the sound sharp and final. The applause that erupted was deafening, but Malik barely heard it. His heart was too full, too broken. He didn't smile, didn't raise his fists in victory. He simply nodded once, a small, solemn bow to the ghosts who had carried him this far. After the hearing, as the crowds dispersed and the sunlight dipped low over the courthouse steps, a young officer approached Malik, awkward in his freshly pressed uniform, cradling a small wooden box in his hands. "Sir," the officer said, voice shaking slightly, "this is for you." Malik accepted the box with careful hands. The wood was smooth and warm from the sun. A brass plaque on the lid simply read, "Service and Sacrifice." He opened it slowly. Inside, nestled against velvet, was a canine Medal of Valor, the highest honor a service dog could receive. Malik's breath caught in his chest. Alongside the medal was a small, handwritten card, the handwriting shaky but deliberate, "For Rex, who never stopped protecting us." And beneath that, a single line that cleaved Malik's soul in two, "Thank you for never letting go." Malik traced the medal with his fingertips, his vision blurring, the setting sun catching the golden edges and making it glow like fire. He closed the box carefully, holding it against his chest, against the wound that would never fully heal. The plaza was nearly empty now, the echoes of celebration fading into the quiet sigh of the evening breeze. Malik stood alone at the top of the courthouse steps, staring out over the city he had fought to save, a city that had cost him everything, but somehow, in the end, had given him something back. Not victory, not triumph, but a kind of peace. Hard-earned, blood-soaked, real. He reached down and brushed his hand against the worn leash hanging from his belt. The last piece of Rex he still carried. "We did it, partner," he whispered, his voice rough but steady. "We kept the promise." In the distance, sirens wailed. Not in menace this time, but in purpose. The old order falling away, the new struggling to be born. Malik turned away from the steps, the box tucked safely under his arm. The city spread out before him like a battlefield waiting to be rebuilt. He didn't know where the road would take him next, didn't know if he even cared. He only knew one thing for certain. He would walk it with Rex's memory beside him. Every step, every mile, a testament to a bond that even death could not break. If this story moved you, please consider liking and subscribing to stay connected. Every voice matters here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which moments stayed with you the longest? And where in the world are you reading this from? Drop a comment below. I read every single one.